The chamber of the Galactic Senate glittered like a cathedral built from light and arrogance. Every seat was filled, from crystalline insectoids to gas-borne entities swirling in containment domes. Banners of the Galactic Empire of Orvalis shimmered behind the central dais, each inscribed with their sigil, a sun consuming its planets. At the heart of it all stood a single human. Commander Elias Varrin didn't move when the Emperor's hologram appeared before him, towering and radiant, eyes burning with imperial pride. The sound of his declaration rolled through the chamber like thunder. By decree of the Orvalian Empire, Cale Thorin proclaimed, humanity is hereby declared a hostile species. All human colonies and allied systems are to be seized. Their technology dismantled. Their fleets neutralized. A pause deliberate. Then, venom wrapped in diplomacy. This is mercy, considering what you could become. 1,000 murmurs rippled through the delegates. Cameras turned. Varrin just sat there, calm. One gloved hand rested on the table, the other reached into his coat. With a slow, unhurried motion, he pulled out a metal case, flicked it open, and lit a cigarette. A hiss spread through the chamber. Several species recoiled from the flame. Varrin exhaled a thin stream of smoke and met the Emperor's gaze through the holographic projection. "You done?" he asked. The translator drone stuttered, as if confused by the simplicity of the words. Cale's voice hardened. "Do you understand, human? You are surrounded. The Council has sanctioned your eradication." "I heard you," Varrin said evenly. "Just wanted to make sure you were serious before I waste a call." He leaned back in the chair, the smoke coiling like lazy ghosts above him. For a long moment, no one spoke. The silence pressed against the room until Cale broke it with a contemptuous laugh. "Arrogance until the end. Typical." "Not arrogance," Varrin said softly. "Just experience." Cale leaned forward, massive in projection. "You humans think your defiance makes you special. You are insects before a storm. The Empire spans 9 sectors. You have 3 habitable worlds and a handful of fleets." Varrin shrugged. "Quantity never scared us. It's quality that matters." The Emperor sneered. "You dare imply—" "I'm implying," Varrin interrupted, "that numbers mean nothing when you've never fought for survival. You expand because you can. We evolved because we had to." That hit something. The Emperor's jaw clenched, the mask of regal calm beginning to fracture. Across the chamber, the Vorthan delegate raised a trembling limb. "Representative Varrin," it said in a fluting tone, "surely you don't intend to resist? Your species would be annihilated." Varrin turned his head slowly. "You say that like it's hypothetical." The Vorthan twitched, unsure if it was being mocked. Varrin flicked the ash from his cigarette into an ornate Orvalian waste receptacle. "We've been annihilated before. The thing about humans, we tend to come back meaner." Cale's expression shifted from disdain to curiosity. "You expect us to believe you have a chance?" "No," Varrin said, voice calm as still water. "I expect you to find out what happens when you give us one." The chamber erupted. Voices clashed, translators overloaded, and delegates shouted over one another. Some demanded immediate action. Others begged for negotiation. Through it all, Varrin sat motionless, finishing his cigarette as if the galaxy's fate wasn't being debated above his head. When the chaos reached its peak, he spoke quietly, and somehow every voice died. "You're making a mistake," he said. "But that's fine. Everyone does, the first time." Cale's image flickered. "You speak as though you've seen the end already." "I have," Varrin said. "We wrote the book on it." He reached into his coat again, tapped his communicator, and said 2 words. "Red Protocol." No one understood them. Not then. Cale's projection straightened. "And what is that, human? Another bluff?" Varrin smiled faintly. "You'll know soon enough." The Emperor's voice turned sharp. "You threaten the Empire in its own hall?" "I don't threaten," Varrin said. "I inform. There's a difference." For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then Cale barked, "Remove him." Guards stepped forward, armored and armed. Ren rose slowly, flicked the dying ember of his cigarette to the floor, and crushed it under his boot. He didn't resist when they took his arms. As they led him toward the exit, he glanced back once. The Emperor's eyes burned with triumph. Ren's carried something colder, pity. Outside the chamber, the corridor hummed with static from distant comms. A low-ranking officer from the Neutral Corps Alliance hurried after him, whispering urgently. "Commander! Was that a signal?" Ren didn't answer. He simply said, "Tell your government to stay quiet for the next 12 hours. Anything that moves near Seoul will vanish." The officer paled. Vanish. Ren stopped, met his gaze. No debris. No explosion. Just gone. And then he walked away. Back inside the chamber, Kale faced the gathered Senate. "You see their arrogance? Their insolence? They threaten the galaxy and call it peace. But he stopped when his adjutant whispered something in his ear. The color drained from Kale's face. Across the Senate's central holodisplay, live feeds began flickering in Orvalian fleets drifting aimlessly. Command signals lost. Weapons disabled. Entire armadas motionless, their energy cores sealed behind invisible lock. A hush swept through the chamber. "What is this?" Kale demanded. "What have they done?" No one answered. Ren's voice, calm and quiet, came through the central comm feed. "Red protocol acknowledged. Fleet containment initiated. You declared war, Emperor. Consider this your opening ceremony." Kale slammed a fist into the console. "Release my ships." "You can't," Ren said. "Not until I let you." The Emperor trembled with fury. "You will pay for this." "Maybe," Ren said, voice fading as he disconnected. "But not today." The human delegation vanished from Varrin Prime before security could intercept them. Their shuttle left no signature, no heat trail, not even a shadow on scanners. In the Senate's aftermath, the delegates argued, panicked, and theorized. But one truth lingered like smoke after a battle: humanity hadn't threatened the galaxy. They had just reminded it to be careful what it provoked. Later, in the solitude of his transport, Elias Varrin lit another cigarette. Outside the viewport, 1,000 stars hung motionless against the void. His adjutant, a young officer named Miratul, approached hesitantly. "Was that really necessary, sir?" He took a drag, eyes fixed on the endless dark. "Necessary? No. Predictable? Absolutely." She hesitated. "They'll see it as an act of war." "They already did," Ren said, smoke curling around his words. "Now they'll see what restraint looks like." He leaned back, voice almost a whisper. "Let's give them 12 hours to think about what kind of war they just started." The stars outside seemed to flicker in response. And somewhere deep in the void, humanity's silence began to hum. The Galactic Council chamber was chaos disguised as diplomacy. Holographic emblems of 1,000 civilizations glimmered around the dome, flickering with static as tension rippled through the room. The declaration had already been made. The Empire of Solaran had pronounced total war against Earth. The statement hung like an execution order in the cold, artificial air. Yet, on the center dais, the human representative remained utterly still. Ambassador Elias Varrin, 47 years old, battle-hardened in both words and wars, simply stood there with his hands clasped behind his back. His sharp eyes, gray as the smoke of old battlefields, scanned the shouting counselors. When one of them finally turned to him and sneered, "Do you have anything to say, human?" Elias pulled a cigarette from his coat and lit it. The flame's flicker reflected off his scarred knuckles. "I was wondering when you'd make it official," he said quietly, exhaling a lazy curl of smoke. "Guess mercy wasn't in your vocabulary after all." The room erupted again, not from blasters but from words, accusations, threats, and oaths of vengeance. Elias didn't flinch. He'd seen this before, centuries ago, when humanity still fought itself. Empires always believed they could dictate peace by strength. None ever learned until they burned. From his seat on the far side, High Chancellor Vraxis, the Solaren who had initiated the declaration, leaned forward. His face, reptilian and elegant, was carved with predatory calm. You humans have overstepped your boundaries for decades, colonizing worlds without approval, weaponizing forbidden technology, disrupting our trade routes. You act as if you are the center of the galaxy. Elias blew a slow stream of smoke toward the ceiling. We didn't want the center, he said. We just wanted to be left alone. The Council's translation drones hummed softly, turning his words into hundreds of dialects. Around him, dozens of species whispered among themselves, some afraid, others intrigued. Humanity's reputation had always been contradictory. Builders and destroyers, explorers and conquerors, merciful and merciless. Vraxis rose, his golden armor catching the chamber's light. You misunderstand, Ambassador. This is not a request for peace. This is your end. Humanity will be reduced to what it once was, primitive, divided, forgotten. Elias met his gaze. You might want to read your history again, Chancellor. Every time someone tried that, they ended up part of our museums. Vraxis snarled. Your arrogance will be your ruin. Elias flicked ash onto the polished floor. Funny. That's what Napoleon said. And the Kaiser. And the collective of Mars. You're in good company. Behind his calm exterior, Elias's mind was already working through the details. The Solaren fleets were massive, yes, but predictable. Their war doctrines hadn't changed in centuries. They relied on overwhelming numbers and intimidation. Humanity had faced extinction before, and each time they had come out changed, harder, smarter, colder. He needed time. Time for the directive to activate. Vraxis was still speaking, his voice a hiss of command echoing through the hall. Within 3 standard days, our fleets will cross into soul space. You may prepare your defenses, though it will be futile. The Council stands with the Empire. A murmur rippled across the chamber, but Elias noticed it immediately. Not all the Council stood with them. The representatives from the Ori Confederacy and the Drellian Combine avoided eye contact. Good. He'd been counting on their silence. Elias tapped his comm implant. Sarah, he murmured under his breath. A voice crackled back, calm and sharp. Copy, Ambassador. Secure line. Is the directive confirmed? Yes. Code Black authorized. Earth Command is mobilizing all Shadow Fleet. We're moving under the veil. He exhaled smoke and almost smiled. Then the war just started. Vraxis turned his head. What was that, human? Elias met his gaze again. Just talking to myself. Old habit. The Chancellor sneered. Then talk to your gods. You'll need them. Elias stubbed out the cigarette and rose to full height. We stopped praying to gods the day we learned to light our own stars. The silence that followed was deeper than shock. It was unease. Even the translation drones paused. The words carried something heavier than arrogance. They carried memory of what humanity had done when provoked. Vraxis's eyes narrowed. You dare threaten this council? Not a threat, Elias said, adjusting his coat. A reminder. He walked toward the exit, slow and deliberate, each step echoing like a countdown. The guards moved to block his path, but one glance from him made them hesitate. Humans had a way of carrying danger, not in weapons but in their eyes. As the chamber doors sealed behind him, he pressed his comm again. Sarah, transmit Protocol Ember to all Terran outposts. Evacuation for civilians. All others, prepare for engagement. Understood. And Elias, are you sure we can win this? He stopped in the hallway, the dim light reflecting off the metallic walls. No, he said quietly. But we won't lose either. We never do. He ended the call and stepped into the docking bay. The Dauntless, a Terran diplomatic cruiser, waited like a silent predator. Its surface shimmered with adaptive camouflage, a remnant of the stealth tech humanity had promised never to build again. Promises meant nothing when war came knocking. As he boarded, Elias felt the vibration of the ship's core systems humming awake. He glanced once more through the viewport at the Council's shining towers in the distance. Somewhere in that maze of arrogance and ignorance, a reptilian emperor believed humanity would surrender. He smiled faintly. "You'll learn," he murmured. "You all will." The engines roared to life, and the Dauntless broke away from the station, fading into the void like smoke disappearing into wind. Below the silence of the stars, in hidden sectors and dark gravity wells, thousands of Terran warships began to stir. They had waited for centuries for peace. Now, mercy had expired. Humanity was lighting its last cigarette before the storm. The black of space never looked so alive. From the bridge of the Dauntless, Elias watched the holographic map bloom with hostile signatures, hundreds of Solaran vessels forming a crescent around the Soul Gate. Their formation was precise, arrogant, and predictable. "Status," he said. Commander Sarah's voice was calm but taut. "The Empire's advance fleets just crossed the lunar perimeter. Defensive lines Alpha through Delta are active. Earth Command reports civilian evacuation at 72%. 72 isn't good enough." Elias stepped forward, eyes fixed on the hologram. "Send a direct link to Admiral Rourke." The channel opened, revealing the rugged face of a man forged in the chaos of the Mars Rebellion. "Elias," Rourke greeted grim. "Looks like history found us again." "It always does," Elias replied. "Deploy the Phantom Wings. We'll engage under Directive Veil. No open transmissions, no heroics. We strike once, hard, silent, final." Rourke nodded. "Understood. God help us." Elias's voice was flat. "He won't. We do this ourselves." The screen went dark. Around him, the hum of the Dauntless grew deeper as its systems synchronized with the hidden Terran fleet. From asteroid belts to shadowed moons, the ships emerged, black, sleek, invisible to standard scans. Humanity's secret inheritance from a century of restraint. Sarah turned to him. "They'll never see it coming." "They never do," he said softly. Far across the void, High Chancellor Vraxis stood on the bridge of his command dreadnought, the Empyrean's Wrath. The vessel was a cathedral of war, 10 kilometers of obsidian metal, bristling with plasma cannons and pulse batteries. His officers moved with ritual precision, their movements timed to the rhythm of conquest. "Report," Vraxis commanded. "Human resistance minimal, Chancellor. Their orbital defenses are primitive. We expect complete planetary dominance within 2 cycles." Vraxis's mouth curled into a thin smile. "End it quickly. The galaxy needs to see that mercy to humans was a mistake." He turned his gaze to the star ahead, the sun of Soul, bright and defiant. "They think themselves divine," he murmured. "We will show them what gods truly look like." But the gods he mocked were already awake. On the dark side of Luna, space shimmered. Thousands of Terran ships decloaked in perfect silence. Their hulls were forged of obsidian alloys that drank light and sound. The Phantom Wings spread into formation, engines pulsing with a low red glow like the heartbeat of something ancient. "Targets locked," Sarah said. "We have their command fleet within strike radius." Elias didn't hesitate. "Execute Ember Protocol." A moment later, the black void ignited. From each Terran ship, a storm of plasma lances and kinetic spears erupted, faster than light, unseen until impact. Entire Solaran cruisers shattered into molten fragments before alarms could sound. The dreadnoughts reeled, shields collapsing under weapons they had believed extinct. Direct hits across sectors 5 through 9. Sarah called. "Their coordination's breaking." Elias stood motionless, watching the holographic carnage unfold. "Maintain pressure. Hit their command relays. No survivors." For the first time in 1,000 years, the Council's fleets were on the defensive. Vraxis staggered as the deck beneath him shook. "What in the name of the void was that?" "Unknown weaponry, Chancellor. We've lost 7 cruisers. No, 10, make that 14. They're coming from the shadows." Vraxis's composure cracked. Shields to maximum. Fire all batteries. The dreadnought's cannons roared, vomiting waves of energy into the darkness. But there was nothing to hit, only flickers, ghosts, and afterimages. Humanity had turned the art of disappearance into warcraft. Suddenly, a communication broke through the static. A single voice, calm and low. Chancellor. Vraxis froze. The signal carried no origin trace. Who speaks? You know who. The voice was unmistakable, Elias Varrin. You think yourselves unstoppable, Elias continued. But you made one mistake. You believed peace meant weakness. You mistook restraint for fear. Show yourself, human. Vraxis snarled. Face me. I already am, Elias said. Look out your window. Vraxis turned and his blood went cold. The Dauntless had appeared less than 10 kilometers from his dreadnought, its black hull wreathed in the faint glow of plasma discharge. The ship was tiny compared to the Empyrean's wrath, but its guns were locked and steady. This is your last chance, Elias said. Stand down. Vraxis's claws clenched. We do not surrender to primitives. Then you'll die learning why that was a mistake. Elias gestured once. The Dauntless cannons fired. A single shot, a compressed antimatter core wrapped in quantum filaments, tore through the dreadnought's shields and armor like paper. The explosion wasn't fire but silence, the kind that consumed light. The Empyrean's wrath imploded, folding into a void pulse before vanishing entirely. The Solaran fleet broke. Some fled, others were obliterated as Terran forces advanced in precise waves, cutting through their lines with surgical efficiency. Within hours, the invasion armada ceased to exist. When it was done, the battlefield was quiet. Wreckage drifted across the stars like frozen ash. Sarah exhaled, shoulders trembling. It's over. Elias didn't answer right away. He stared at the debris of what had once been the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. No, he said finally. It's never over. But they'll remember now. She turned to him. What do we tell the Council? The truth, he said. That we were merciful once. And that mercy has limits. He turned and walked to the observation deck. Through the glass, Earth hung below, blue, fragile, beautiful. The planet they had fought to protect, again and again, from themselves and others. Sarah joined him quietly. You think they'll come back? He smiled faintly. They always do. But next time, they'll think twice before mistaking humanity's silence for surrender. The bridge lights dimmed as the Dauntless began its return course. Behind them, the wreckage of an empire drifted in silence, a graveyard of arrogance and fire. Elias reached into his coat, drew another cigarette, and lit it. Sarah gave a tired laugh. You really need to quit those. He exhaled smoke, eyes on the stars. Maybe after the next war. The flame reflected in his gaze, a small, human light burning against the infinite dark. Across the galaxy, the story spread, whispered first in fear, then in awe. The species of the Council spoke of the humans who had held back for centuries, the ones who fought not for conquest but survival, who carried mercy in one hand and fire in the other. They said the last thing the Chancellor saw before his ship vanished was a man with a cigarette, standing in the dark, unshaken. And somewhere, in the silence between worlds, that same man looked toward the stars and said quietly, Mercy was your chance. You should have taken it.